I wanted to say that it's not easy. You would think that people find fast community. Sometimes they do not. This brother here, from the moment he met me, was like, we need to know each other, and he want to teach you some things. And he's been teaching me ever since. And when I first came to San Francisco, he was the first one to bring me to Omnivore. We went to Brenda's.
We went to Brenda's and we went to Omnivore, and you and Silly were fast friends.
That's right. So it was just, this is, I just have to say that before we start, that I just have so much respect and love for you and yours, because not everybody treats folk like that. And we are an intimate group, but I just want to say I know how bad the traffic and parking and everything else is in the city. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad to have so many friends and family here. That makes a big difference. I can't shout out everybody right now, but you know who you are, looking at you. Mm-hmm. But thank you for being here, and thank you for the energy that you bring into this room and the spirit you bring into this space. Cool.
Man, I thank you. I cannot tell you how moving it is to hear you talk about me in that way, because I feel like you're one of my most important teachers. Man, look, let me just state a script, because if I digress too much, I'm going to be up here like rattling on, and I'm going to start crying. So we'll get back to that.
Hurt.
But I just want to say good evening to everyone. It is truly my honor and pleasure to be in conversation with my brother, Michael Twitty, here. Michael is, without exaggeration, one of the food world's most essential public historians. His work reminds us that food is not merely sustenance. It's a vessel for memory, identity, resistance, and repair. Across books, lectures, gardens, and kitchens, he's demonstrated that culture lives in our hands and our mouths just as much as in archives and libraries. Our friendship has grown out of a shared belief in the political and poetic power of the table, the way the food can illuminate histories of enslavement, diaspora, migration, and survival, while also offering us unimaginable joy. Michael's scholarship is meticulous, but his hospitality is expansive. He teaches by inviting, by welcoming, and by feeding. Tonight, we get to celebrate his latest book, The American South, a volume as generous as its author, expansive in scope, grounded in history, and accessible to the home cook. And it marks another chapter in his remarkable arc of his work. From the Southern Discomfort Tour, where he interrogated the landscapes of slavery and memory, to the Cooking Gene, which traced our food roots from enslavement to emancipation, to Rice, a deep dive into one of the South's most indispensable staple foods and its African diasporic identity, showing us how something as humble as a grain can travel continents and hold together cultures. To Kosher Soul, exploring the conversation of migrations and the dialogue of diasporas across African Atlantic and Jewish culinary traditions. With this new book, he brings those trajectories together, offering a comprehensive portrait of Southern foodways. There's also something important about this vessel, The American South. This book is published by Phaidon, a house known for authoritative cultural cookbooks, Bibles, really. Entrusting Michael with this vision affirms what so many of us already know. Southern food cannot be understood without centering the contributions, artistry, labor, and knowledge of Africans and people of African descent. Taken together, the Cooking Gene, Rice, and the American South offer a lens we have not seen before, one that refuses erasure and insists on complexity. Through Michael's work, the South becomes a site of collision and creativity, of loss and survival, of brutal histories and breathtaking beauty. So I'm honored to be in conversation with Michael tonight, and I want to thank you all for showing up. You know, whoever is meant to be here, like, we're all meant to be together tonight and have this experience. And, you know, one thing I wanted to share, we were talking about like the kind of vicissitudes of going on tour and how sometimes you might have 100 people and sometimes you might have 10. And a lesson I learned early on is whether they're 5 people or 500, I'm just like giving it up my all and bringing 1,000%. And, you know, Stephanie mentioned that I was the chef in residence at Moad. Who knows about Moad in here? Have people gone to Moad? Okay, good. Please support Moad as well. But I remember they invited me for a lunch. And you know what? I think you did one of their lunch talks one time. It was a long time ago. It was like in the middle of the day where it was just like you showed up. But they invited me to do a lunch talk. And I come to the city, I live in East Bay, and there were 2 people there. And I was like, you know what? This is weird, but I am going to just give this as much enthusiasm as if there were 20,000 people in there. And but rather than like getting on the podium and lecture, I just said, let's just sit around and just like, let's just huddle up and have a conversation. So we had this fantastic conversation. And then a year later, one of those people who were one of the 2 people in there, Linda Harrison, was there with her partner. And Linda became the executive director of the Museum of the African Diaspora. And she called me up and said, listen, I have this dream of creating this chef in residency with you. Let's meet in my office. We're going to come up with some ideas and we're going to find funding and you're going to drive this like innovative and groundbreaking program. We did it. It went on to go like 7 years and it has influenced countless institutions, if not wholesale, creating a whole chef in residency, thinking about organizations that don't necessarily focus on food, having some kind of like focus or programming around health, food, and farming issues. So I just wanted to share that note and just, you know, reiterate that I just always believe that Spirit brings everybody who's supposed to be there, and we're here. So let's get into it.
All right.
So I want to start by doing a little framing.
Sure.
Now, since I met you, and even before when I just was seeing the way that you were kind of moving in the world, and this is kind of weird because the flowers are blocking me from even seeing your face.
I know, right?
But we'll fix that. But anyway, so I've always known you to be someone connected to life all around us, both in the seen and unseen worlds. And I know you hold a deep relationship with ancestors and ancestral guidance. When I imagine you as a child, I think about you being a kid that the elders in my family in Tennessee would say is touched.
Yes.
From a young age. From what I understand.
I was called an Obi child.
See?
My great aunt called me the Obi child.
I didn't know that, but I knew it. Can you expound upon the Obi child?
So Obi or Bea is one of the many African-based spiritual traditions, religious traditions in the Americas. And I remember she called me that because I had a nightlight. I did not like the dark. And it was a skull over the nightlight, which is really weird. So I don't like the darkness and the scary thing with a skull over top of it. But she was like, whoa. But also I was very addicted to those traditions that people tended to let go of. See, when black people came from the South to other parts of the Great Migration, the Urban League and other organizations were there to reacculturate them. Because, if you notice the shirt, August Wilson wrote about those people. The fact that when they came up, they came with their folk beliefs, some people call it superstitions. They came with their power objects, some people call them charms and amulets. They came with their traditions, like reading the future by opening the Bible up and saying, oh, that's what's going to happen. Naming people from the Bible, like Orpah, which is really became Oprah. That was a mistake. But Orpah sound like you can eat a harpoon to do your makeup. And so it's just like, I absorbed all those things. And my grandmother, my light-skinned, originally redheaded, hazel-eyed grandmother was a hoodoo lady. And so she kept all those things, and I was very, I remember, okay, you gotta put this root in your pocket. That ditty bag that you saw in Centers, I still have multiple ditty bags. I learned all that. Keeping the mustard seed on you.
Wait, and you used to wear it often. Do you not wear it anymore?
I have one that's on my door of my house.
Okay.
Keep the haints out. As we're saying in Judaism, the shadim, which means ghosts. You listen. That was like the ghost. Oh Lord, it showed up in front of everybody. No, welcome. But I mean, all those things. But I was like in love with this rural Southern heritage. My grandmother, my mom's side was from Alabama. Her people were from
Where in Alabama?
So they were both her and my granddaddy was born in Birmingham, but their parents were from the Black Belt. And then granddaddy's parents were from northern Alabama. And so cotton, both places.
Yep.
And, too many, read the cooking gene. That's all I'm going to tell you. It's too much to tell you. And then, other side, my grandmother, my dad's mama was from Prince Edward County. Tobacco farmers. And Prince Edward County shut down the schools for over a decade rather than integrate. And then my granddaddy, Gonsley Twitty, was one of the founding fathers of the Federation of Southern Cooperatives.
Nice.
And he was from Lancaster, South Carolina. He lived to be 99. My grandmother lived to be 95. Not so good on my mom's side. But my grandmother on my mom's side was like my heart. And I was her favorite grandchild. And she called me Angel Face. And so I had like a lot of that unconditional love. And I asked her a lot of questions. And unlike a lot of other black folks who lived through Jim Crow, she did not hide behind. A lot of people just didn't want to talk about the traumas, especially black women. She was like, no, you got to know. And, she said something that you'll hear often from black elders, which is, one day you'll need to know this. And look at what we're living in right now.
Yep.
So that perspective, and then came with it the food. I mean, food is not apolitical. Sorry. Food as political as right now. Right? And so we understand that. But also the fact that both of my grandmothers lived through the Depression. One was a little bit older than the other, by about, a decade. But they both said something really impressive, which was, during the Depression, we did not starve, the white man starved. They came to our back door. Because there was no such thing as welfare or a SNAP or nothing for black people living in the Deep South. Nothing. You got nothing. The colored hospital was always 2,000 miles down the road. There was no resource. People have this idea it was separate and equal. No, it wasn't. It wasn't equal anything.
Yep.
And so there was a reason why the herbalism, which actually is in the book, and other things are so important because they connected with food and the garden and nature and foraging. And those are technologies, parts, these are literal majors and minors in the School of Early African American Knowledge, without which the South would not be. And this is why we talk about that centrality, right? Because look, when I went to Louisiana, during the Southern Discomfort, my first time going to Louisiana, and I was so desperate to go to Louisiana. I was like, ever since the Republican convention was held there in, I think, 88, and they had all this stuff about Louisiana. And I was so fascinated. I knew something was up. So I go to the little, Cajun museum, Heritage Museum, and I'm like, these are supposed to be white people from France. And the first picture I see is a white woman with a big mortar and pestle pounding rice. Okay. And then there's okra, and then there's hot pepper, and it's like, wait a minute. And then the words, Chupik, which is bowfin, cowan, which is snapping turtle, poisson mer, that's alligator gar, poisson bleu, that's the blue catfish. And then there was all these terms like, it's almost like they're from Chitimacha, Choctaw, certain very specific dialects of French, and also Wolof, Serer, Fulani, Fon, the enslaved people who were there. From Africa, who were in the woods, the maroon communities. And so I forget what the young man called it. He was a black Creole sophomore at Dillard. And he had a beautiful way of talking. And that's why I love the way my grandparents talked. Especially my grandfather. Guan. Y'all guan up here. I just loved it. And the way my grandmother I could hear my great-grandfather through her. He said, Mother, who you think we are, the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers? And I went, I just loved it. I just like, I was like, wow, that Zora Neale Hurston speech. And I was like, that's a part of me, right? Or The Color Purple, right? If you read the book, it's written in the language. It's not written in standard English for the most part. And so I love that. And so this young man he said, oh, you talk like white people. It's not laundry, laundry. Then I went to Leah Chase and I said, laundry. She said, you've been hearing them country people, haven't you? But there was a word for the heron, and I forget what it was called in Creole, and it was like a specific word. I think it's in the cooking gene somewhere. But in Gullah, it's called pojo, which comes from Vi, from Liberia. Pojo, pojo. And then it anglicized to poor Joe, pojo. That means a heron. The heron that shows you where the fish are. And if you're lucky, you'll hit the heron and the fish and have both for dinner. So, I mean, just that thinking process, right? And then seeing the collectivity between all these different groups. So as a kid, I was very encyclopedic. I loved cooking shows. Back when we didn't have no cooking channel, no Food Network, you had to watch on Saturday afternoon on PBS. And we had Natalie Dupree, who I became friends with many years later, and stayed at her home. And it was wild. It was like a full circle. New Southern Cooking. We had, what was that fella name? Justin Wilson, yes. Thank you, Adrian. And we had Justin Wilson, and he was fake Cajun, but he was very entertaining and gave you a lot of history and a lot of culture, even though that wasn't his real background. And he was actually a dirty comedian, but let's talk about that later. And like all that stuff. And I mean, I learned Yan Can't Cook with Martin Yan. Yeah, that was his. And Floyd on Fish and the Galloping Gourmet and the Two Fat Ladies and all that stuff. I was in love with it. And so I told my parents when I was 7, Daddy said, what you want to be? And I said, I'm going to be a chef, a teacher, a writer, and a preacher.
Didn't that manifest?
And I didn't know until my students were actually like, Mr. Twitty, you're like the first like black Jewish preacher. And I was like, oh. And then like, you're a chef? And I'm like, I started to put it together. When I was 11 years old, I pissed my grandmother off. So I remember I'm like her favorite. But you know when you mess up? My grandmother whooped me one time and it was traumatic. She never did it again. But one thing, the master of the side-eye. So Grammy said to me one day, Grammy, remember I had Grammy, we had Grammy, Nana, Madeira, Nana. We had all of them, and Big Mama. We had all the black grandma names. And so one day she says, come with me to the store. It was not please. You already knew. She was not strict. That was the thing. It's like if you've ever read Things Fall Apart, the relationship between a Conco and a Zima. Now, ordinarily, in his patriarchal culture, daughter does what daddy says. But she's the only person in the book who can do whatever she wants to a Conco. And a Conco,
you all know about this book?
Chinua Achebe.
Yeah.
And she's the only character in the book that you notice a Conco never loses his temper with. He treats her, and it's because she is a ghost child. She is basically the only living child after a number of stillbirths and other complications and children who are born but die. So he treats her in a certain way, but he also loves her because she's a tomboy. And so that's my relationship with my grandmother. Like there's something special about you. And so so I said, Grammy, I can't go. What you mean you can't go? You better go upstairs and get dressed and wash up and, Grammy, no, this is the neurodivergent black child. No, Grammy, you don't understand. I have to write this book about the South right now. It's gonna be a big book, and I gotta finish it, and I gotta write this book. Fine. That's when I knew, and I had to turn, to come back in the house with the groceries. And I knew it was done. I was done. But there was no actual punishment other than like this weird blend of like guilt and shame. But that's where this book comes from. I was 11, 10 or 11 years old. And I had that idea that I got to do this. And it's this thing she told me about a long time ago. Bryant said something that was deep. He said, sometimes you have a project in you have a product, an art, that the audience ain't born yet. And it's not gonna manifest in the full way because everybody ain't there for it yet.
Yep.
And so for me, like knowing that that was me, also loving living history. You know, I've done a lot of stuff at Colonial Williamsburg and other places. I've done things where I've gone to different plantation places where enslaved people cooked and lived and brought their food back to life, but also going to Africa. Mm-hmm. You know, 8 different countries, and taking people with me to learn about the skills and the culture. And then when I was in Europe, I made a point of going to different parts of England, not just London, going to different parts of Scotland and Ireland. Because I was like, okay, so if y'all claim this is the root of everything and everything comes from here, I want to see it. When I went to France, I want to see it. And I learned enough to know that bouillabaisse will never be gumbo and jambalaya. I learned that in England, you know, jellied eels. I saw the jellied eels and I saw the roast beef and Yorkshires and I saw that stuff and the toad in the hole and spotted dick and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, this isn't really compute. I even went to the fish market in Kent, not Kent, and the other way around, Somerset. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking in my head, I kind of got to memorize this image of the fish they have in Kent, and Somerset, sorry. And then I went to Senegal, and I was like, oh, damn. The same fish I saw in Savannah and Charleston are in the Kermel market in Dakar. Mm-hmm. So what lies are we telling about the origins of America? Yeah. You know, you can't tell about like indigenous people, and indigenous South is still very much alive. Let me do a little test, Bryant. Okay. All right. Black Americans, I need you. Your great-great-grandmother was a full-blood... I will accept both answers. And her hair, you got to be loud about this, her hair was so long and so straight she could... Y'all ain't being active. If her hair was so long and so straight she could sit on it. Or put that comb through it. Both answers are acceptable. Now, that means we have a culture. In Atlanta, it was really hilarious. I put the mountain, it was like, my great-great-grandmama was a full-blood Cherokee Indian, and her hair was so straight and so long, she could sit on it. And it's funny, because all the white people was like, what, this thing? I just did Ancestry. I thought I was Swedish, but I'm really Scottish. And I'm just like, yes, this is how we catch knowledge about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And Southerners are also very blatantly aware of our connection to each other across racial lines. Mm-hmm. That stuff you see on TV, the colored people and the black people and the white people here, no. Every Southern family, white and black, will go, those are your black cousins. Those are your white cousins. It's real. I mean, and there's a tacit acknowledgement that there is this bridging. Even with Kosher Soul, which, by the way, first African-American to win the National Jewish Book Award. Thank you. It's like when I talked about, after I got done talking about my personal story, when you talk about Southern Jewish food, my teacher and mentor, Marcy Cohen Ferris, she did not play around. When she started her journey to find her own stuff, her own people, after Drive Miss Daisy, no joke, people didn't know there were Southern Jews in those numbers. She said, you can't tell this story without black people. And it starts in the Caribbean. And then all those Southern families in Charleston, Savannah, there were more Jews in Charleston, Savannah than were in New York for at least a century. Mm. So where did people come from? What were they doing? You know, there's a beautiful book out right now, been out a couple years, called Once We Were Slaves. And it's all about a Jewish family that had deep roots in the Caribbean, emancipated descendants of a Jewish slave owner African women who then came to America and became the scions of some of the wealthiest and most powerful Jewish families in New York. And they were always considered swarthy, and nobody talked about being part black. And then, of course, you had actual people who lived their lives in all these communities. Filipinos in Louisiana, 250 years. People from Java and Indonesia and China and the Chesapeake in the 17th, 18th centuries. Spanish communities. When people say speak English, I'm like, Latino America is older than British America will ever be. So, I mean, and on and on and on and on and on. And then the number of different racial groups like the brass ankles and Cajuns versus Cajuns, and of course the Melungeons, of which we have J.D. Vance, a descendant. You don't get to be from Appalachia that long without them cheekbones, them lips, and that Negro blood. Sorry, J.D., talking about Usha. Usha need to usher you out the door, touching that lady husband, the husband lady, rather. You know, I mean, this is what we live with, and it's so silly that we don't acknowledge this as part of our real history and how we exist. And of course, those of you who are in this room are clued in, but there's a whole generation of younger folks across our families that don't know these stories. They don't know, and a lot of it comes to the food. And if I will say one more thing, the weird answer to your question, it goes like this. See, ADHD ain't play and don't play. It goes like this. Look, Southern people are a family, albeit a dysfunctional one. We morph, we move, we migrate. And people don't understand that because of the crops that were grown in the South that were very labor intensive but also exhausted the land, people were frequently moving. There's a white migration, and it came out of Appalachia, the central South to Detroit, to Cincinnati, to Milwaukee, and then there was other migration that went from Texas all the way up into the mountains. And then Arkies and Okies that moved out to Orange County and other parts of California. People don't understand that there is this whole network of multiple groups, even the forced migration of indigenous people from Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida to Oklahoma and beyond. So once we consider that, and also consider there are new migrations, everyone was like, oh my God, sinners, there's Chinese people in Mississippi. Yep. That's why there's Chinese collard greens in this book. I learned that from the Chow family, who I interviewed many years ago for the Smithsonian. And I remember Mrs. Chow, Sally Chow, you must remember salt, oil, garlic. When my ancestors came from Canton, over in China, and came to the Delta of Mississippi, they had only so many things. So they didn't have no bok choy no more. So what they did was they grew collard greens. And I emphasize the way she spoke because, of course, I'm like this. It's like when I went to Ireland and I was in like Starbucks and I didn't look up and I heard the most beautiful brogue I'd ever heard out of a Japanese girl living in Ireland. And I was like, if I was straight, baby, that'd have been it for me. But I mean, the bottom line is these border crossers that we've always been, always are, is what makes the food possible.
Yep.
And Southern vegans. Y'all are a thing.
So my wife and I we're working on an Afro-Asian cookbook.
Okay.
Which will be out in 2028, and it's
Just
not
in time for the revolution.
Yeah, well, the revolution is now. The
revolution has started.
Revolution kind of started last night,
and it won't be televised. If I may, real quick, I live in Virginia, and I got to tell you something. Before I went to my presentation at the Skirball, I broke down in tears because before my husband knew, who was actually in Virginia on East Coast time, I knew at 5 o'clock it had been called in Virginia, and I'm like, thank you, God. You don't understand, like they're coming after our marriage, our lives, women's reproductive rights, trying to call IVF child trafficking. And we clean sweep. And that feeling of just like, thank you, God, I don't get to get. I was like, where do we have to move to? Where do we have to leave to? We can start. I mean, we're in the South and we have a woman governor. My God. Yes, I'm so excited to go back. Right, okay. Asian African cookbook, I'm excited. Is it vegan?
It is. Plant-based.
Okay, plant-based, okay.
Vegetable forward.
Vegetable forward. Look, is there fish sauce in there?
We're making a plant-based version of fish sauce.
That's easy to do, actually. Not that hard. Go ahead.
Oh my God. Well, you could just keep talking. I don't even know if I need to be up here.
Let's
I mean,
find a point.
There's so many things that I can grab onto. I guess I'll start here.
Sure.
Because you mentioned this in different ways, how Southern cooks have always adapted ingredients, substitutions, improvisations, just these kind of diasporic techniques. So I'm wondering, how do you think about innovation as an ancestral practice rather than a modern one?
So I got my first, by the way, try to give good reviews on things on various sites. I'm not going to say who and what. But one person on that particular, South American jungle site said, I guess they're Southern, but it's not my Southern. Oh, you mean Meemaw? Well, I sure hell ain't Meemaw. And they use the term like, well, they described in like their own version of poetry, which was like, and they were talking about like the green beans to be mummified. I knew what she meant. Shriveled, dry cooked. Not dry, but dry cooked.
Oh, I saw that review.
Yes. And then they told on themselves, right? Because they were like, I know that African people gave us yummy food. You already know the tale. Your antenna went up, didn't it? The minute yummy food in Africa, okay, girl. I see you. And so I'm looking at this review and I'm like,
wait, at least she gave it the props because one of the reviews for my book Black Food on Amazon is 1-star review. Yuck. Any food coming out of Africa is garbage food. So I'm just like,
okay, then don't drink any cola, don't drink any coffee. Don't, listen, we can keep going all day.
We can keep it
no, but I mean, or I'm surprised they didn't just say, yuck, racist. Why's it gotta be black food?
Well, I get that too. So,
it's not a phenotype. It's a culture. It's like being Jewish. It's not foremost a religion. It's a peoplehood. That's the facts. It's not our faith. It's our peoplehood. Our religion is the religious civilization of our people. The same way, being black, our phenotype is the surface. Oh, Winsome Sears learned that this other night ago. That's not the heart of who we are. It's a look, it's a feeling. So for me, innovation and dynamism is like the same aesthetics that run through our quilting, our fashion. If you didn't see Supervine, get the damn book.
Wait, when are you leaving? You have to leave early in the morning.
I have to leave tomorrow.
Brother, and I don't know if y'all know this, but at the Berkeley Art Museum, there is this fantastic exhibition on African-American quilts throughout the 20th century, and it is like, please get over there before it closes. I wish you could go to that.
All right, see, I gotta find out what's going on. But I mean, that's a perfect example, right? Mm-hmm. Especially like the quilting comes out of G's Bend, comes out of black communities. You can see the imprint of strip cloth weaving from Mande and Akan civilizations in black quilt traditions. And it's the aesthetics of breaking patterns, which is like, same thing happens in music. I'm not a musicologist, but I flirt with it. In the sense of, we get life when that pattern gets broken. Mm-hmm. That's what makes breakdancing, okay? It's about breaking a pattern. And in Haitian Vodou, it's called casse. Mm-hmm. It's the moment when the veil is lifted and the line breaks, and all of a sudden, we are interacting with the ancestors, with the Egun. So casse. And it's also used for like in Haitian folk music to describe that breaking the pattern. That like makes you like do this when you hear a song, right? Same thing happens with the fabric arts. Same thing happens with food. Okay? The layers of something. When a good piece of fish, good piece of chicken, which I tell you in this cookbook, do not season that daggone flour. Season the meat. Because it's going to burn in the pan if you do all that nonsense. And for God's sakes, okay, can I just say this? Mm-hmm. Don't put no damn Hennessy on the food. Now, when I said this in Georgia, I was like, Atlanta people, you were so guilty. Hennessy is not a condiment. I don't know who told you Hennessy, Alfredo, crab legs, and lamb chops are the 4 food groups.
I already know what chef you're talking about, who's like the leader of that movement, but I won't say it.
Quiet as it's kept, as we say in the culture. But I mean, those aesthetic patterns of innovation, even substitution. Now, you could make the argument that most Southerners do this. Okay, they do. People have always sort of, we didn't have this, so we brought this. But that's not it. There's all these little patterns that we have around the culture. And also, people just sort of adapting. You know, Kurdish people in Nashville adapting, Latino communities across the South, and they're all very different, adapting and remixing, and fusion between the cultures. When I did this, okay, so there's 260 plus recipes, and then about 20 or 30 variations, and it was supposed to be a 400 recipe cookbook. You already know. That's not 200 recipes is not a small thing.
Yeah.
And then the variation is not a small thing, but 400 would have been. I've been on the stage. You'd have been like, instead of a celebration, you'd be like, "Vikadal, Vikadish, Shamaraba," And those who know. I'm not going to take time to explain that. But the bottom line is, this is like, that's a lot. But also, I want to tell all the history and the stories.
Yeah.
So what you do is, I have 4 desks in my house, and yet I still go back to my dining room table to write, which is like, wow. And so you put all the books on the table. I'm like 1,800 cookbooks, and I put all these, not just for this, but I have a couple hundred for Southern just alone, and Black cookbooks, and Cajun and Creole and Appalachian, etc. So you put all the books on the table and say, okay, what are the essential ingredients in this particular dish that everybody agrees you have to have? So I consult Miss Emily Meggett, or Nally or Edna Lewis, or John Martin Taylor, and I go through. All right, then the historic cookbooks and the church lady cookbooks. Okay, then I go, how can I put my own stamp on this? Like the chicken and the fish thing. Season, brine, whatever, the meat. Don't put anything more than maybe a pinch of salt in the flour. Then most of the salt actually goes on the outside. We're not talking about a ton of salt. Also, the ability to recognize Southern celebration food from Southern everyday food. Because every day is not a bunch of fried nonsense and da-da-da. Most of it was vegetables that were stewed smartly. Not a mess. Now, some people did do the dead gray, military gray vegetables. Other people did not. I prefer to actually do something vibrant. I want people to eat it. I realize some people do like that mummified taste or mummified look. But I want people in this time and this day to understand that Southern food is seasonal. A lot of it is plant-based or can be plant-based. And that's not a trend thing. That's just that people were poor. They didn't have access to animals. Or when they did, it was a traumatic process to put animals on the table. People, of course, most people in this room know this. There was no cellophane. You wanted a chicken, or it was deep, and sometimes these were your pets and your friends. So that thing had to change. So you're putting all these books on the table. You're going, okay. Now, the analogy that I'm going to make is that in Jewish tradition, we have a tradition of textual analysis, and we also believe in the books are like the living people. And so they talk to you across time and across space. And it's as if this person could talk to this person, and this creator could this creator. And of course, you have the people who don't even have a right to talk. Our enslaved ancestors were forbidden on pain of death to read or write. So then you have
Are you talking about like the Talmud, how it has...
Yes, and all that, and it goes until, and the funny thing is it stops in the 19th century, even though rabbinics never stops. But it kind of slows down, and like, okay, we ain't doing no more. This page is already too crowded. And then you have responsa, which is like an answer to those. But it's as if somebody from the 13th century is talking to somebody from the 18th century, and maybe even from the times of the Gaonim, which is even more ancient, right? Not just medieval. And so learning rabbinics actually taught me a lot about how to look at this from a literary perspective, including our dear teacher, Tony Tipton Martin. Jemima Code is not, people who are like, I want recipes. Shut up. You need to understand that Black cookbooks as a history are a huge genre of literature, food literature. And she traced like themes and ideas and the evolution of those books. I'm sorry, especially when it comes to the contribution of Black people. It can't just be like, here's my secrets, here's my good stuff. Now go ahead and appropriate me and make money and have a platform somewhere else. No, that's why we don't give you the full recipe anyway. Well, I tried to make Mamie Sue's rice, but something's missing. You daggone right, the salt, the pepper, and the flavor, and the soul. How you like that, Miss Ann? I'm sorry. I'm in my feelings. But I mean, it's like, there's all this pressure to sort of like get it right. Of course, for Southern people, you ain't never gonna make them happy. It doesn't matter. I mean, I can't make my food sweet enough, Mississippi. Put enough vinegar in North Carolina. Put enough pepper in it, South Carolina, Louisiana, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's just, you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
So you have to show people the recipe I anguished about the most is fried chicken. Because I knew if I messed that up, it was going to be my ass. Not just from the living, from the dead, too. And so I had to figure that out. But also, I had recipes like makshu. I noticed I did a lot of pairing. Like makshu, succotash, crab chop, crab cake.
Wait, so how'd you kind of like flip makshu? What'd you do to make them? Well, can you tell people about makshu?
So makshu is sort of like, the name it's a Gallicization, making it more French sounding, of a term from Choctaw and Chinamacha for a specific like bean and corn dish. And of course, when the French came in and decimated the Natchez and their neighbors, they said the Natchez have 42 dishes with corn and X number dishes with beans. I mean, it was like they really went in. They had different forms of the crop. So makshu was when you made the corn and the beans together and made a stew. Like succotash, but not quite. Like succotash, but not quite. And so I noticed I did a lot of that pairing sort of like in the back of my brain, not at the forefront. Like, okay, so crab chop from Louisiana is a Lenten dish versus crab cake from Maryland. Yes, Maryland. If you're from Maryland, you don't say Maryland. And guess what? You know what you do on Tuesday or Saturday during third period? You get married or buried with Old Bay. So the bottom line is you have all these sort of like things, this is here, different styles of barbecue. I had a lot of fun with that. And the rubs and the sauces. And Nancy McDermott and, I forget the sister's name, I'll say it in a minute. But they helped me a lot through the baking part. I'm not a baker, but I can bake things reasonably well. But I'm not going to be like the person to measure the grams. I didn't learn like that. So, but when you do a cookbook, you have to be able to say to the home cook or to the baker, this is exactly what you're supposed to do. You can't just guess it. There's no guesswork here.
I wanted to ask you that outside of the baking section, did you hire a recipe tester after you gave an initial like couple goes? Or
absolutely not.
Huh.
And I'll tell you why. The thing about it is, it takes money. Y'all don't understand. These books don't make you rich. You get a certain advance, and you have to work with that. Otherwise, you would spend all your money and I get nothing for it. I got a mortgage to pay. So I knew that for certain dishes, here's how it worked. When I worked with Nancy on some of the baking stuff, she went wild. She was like baking stuff all the time. And then other people were baking stuff for me. And that's out of the goodness of their heart. And then we did the photographs, which is half the recipes in the book.
Yeah.
They were testing and making notes as they were doing the photographs. So I had that part of the editing process. There were 8 copy edits of this book. And each recipe represents between 2, like some of the rubs, 2 hours, right? Max. Okay, great. The others, 12 to 24 to 36 hours worth of work. And that includes testing the recipe. So you do that times 200 plus recipes, see how that works? But this is, like you said, this is a fighting book. This is an heirloom. You can knock on this book like a door, right? And it looks a certain way. I mean, like, I was so pleased with this cover.
Yes.
I lost my mind. I was like, and there's okra on the back too. And I was like, I got the corn, the collard greens, and the black eyed peas. I said, yeah.
The cover's gorgeous.
The applique kind of texture to it. I was like, it's heft. It's not just like just any old whatever. I like the recipe and I just throw it to the side. No, I wanted something people remember. I damn well did that. I brought everything to this. And when you said the cooking gene, cooking gene was my the record. I mean, some people get in your face talking about, well, you consider yourself a Southerner. Excuse me. My people have been here since almost the very beginning of slavery in Virginia and colonization 1674, 1621, 1619. My cousin died the other day, Dick Cheney. We have the same ancestor. See, I'm here to mess around. I'm so tired of people. When my dear ancestor and teacher Alex Haley died, they couldn't wait to tear his name up. You lied. You made that up. How could some Negro ever find his roots in Africa? No, we took it all from you. The hell you did. That's why I was like, no, give me 18,000 DNA tests. I'm going to go to the continent and see my blood and show you that my name ain't no damn Twitty. My name is Keita. My name is Njai, the Lion Clan. I tell people I'm a Lion King and a Lion Queen. But you ain't gonna. You took my name from me once. You're not gonna do it again. And then remember when I did that dinner at after the Paula Deen situation, in North Carolina. That was my first African ancestry results on a plantation. Why are you gonna do the plantation? Because I want to restore my name where it was taken from me. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I do this work on the South, I want you to understand, my great granddaddy, Richard Henry Bellamy, his plaque is still at Vicksburg Battlefield. He was in the Confederate Army, and yes, he was white as a sheet. My native part, Tutalissaponi, goes back to the beginnings of colonization in Virginia. Mm-hmm. My Creek people, that in Alabama, I can show you where it's from. So ain't never gonna be telling me I think I am. And that's like the division that unfortunate cultural division. Southern means white people, soul means us. No.
So
it's all mixed.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, because you talk about the reductive way that most of us talk about and think about the South. How do you imagine the South? Like, how do you talk about those points?
The South is not. First of all, I had an interview the other day ago. An interviewer who I respect said, "Well, but he's talking about Merlin and whatever." I said, "The Mason-Dixon, it's not the part of the Mason-Dixon line." I said, "Yes, it is. The Mason-Dixon line is an actual physical border between Maryland and Pennsylvania. You can still see the markers on the border going back to the 18th century. It's not a metaphorical thing, but there is no sweet tea line. There is no grits line. It's all fake. Paul Faribault, chef and friend who I respect, Big Jones, Chicago. He grew up in a community in southern Indiana that ate just as much southern food as anybody anywhere else. But the thing about it is that they don't teach you that Virginia wasn't just this little triangle. It was Virginia, West Virginia, and at one point Kentucky and part of Tennessee. Those people expand out, and then they keep migrating and they bring the culture with them. You can find okra in the garden seeds list in the Springfield newspaper when Abraham Lincoln lived there. I mean, they didn't have black people around because we weren't allowed there. So these things have moved on without us, So all those different parts have foundation in our stories and who we are. And what I'm thinking about as I'm doing this work is that, the Up South that Nicole Taylor so well articulates is important. The South that's out here. Yep. The example I use all the time is, people came out here, they didn't have no blue crab. They took that Dungeness crab and threw it in gumbo and whatnot. But they kept that tradition going. The barbecue spots, the old jazz spots in Oakland, San Francisco, that is a continuation of heritage.
I pulled this quote from the Cooking Gene.
Yes.
That you write, there are many Souths. There are as much mental and emotional territory as there are physical spaces. You can find the South in Chicago, Detroit, Oakland. The South travels. It's not just a place. It's a way of being.
Yeah, it's a verb, it's an adverb, it's an adjective, it's a noun. If you don't know, I can show you better than I can tell you. And that's just what it is. People tend to do this. The South, they define the South by the Confederacy. I'm going to tell you why we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to do that because those 4 years do not trump the 11,000 plus years of human beings that live in what is called the South. Those 4 years when we were 3/5 of human being. How dare you? We are not animals. Our ancestors were not animals. But that's what that law meant. That's what that condition meant. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to give privilege to a bunch of traitors to the United States and the American dream.
Tell it.
Ever again.
Tell it.
And we're going to, and don't care how much they don't like it. So you don't know this, but in Richmond, Bumpkin, our last governor, his name is Youngkin, but we call him Bumpkin. One of his first acts, official acts, was to remove reference to the enslaved people who built, lived in, and worked at the governor's mansion, and turned the room that was like a museum to their existence into a rec room. So I'm going to be writing our elect Governor Spanberger, and I said, please restore that room to what it was, because you will never heal this until you heal this fissure in our culture. So I want to be able to go there to the governor's mansion when it gives tours and understand our history is sacrosanct. You know? So the bottom line for me is that there's some revolution in this. You know, I also talk about, I would like to go over this real quick. The South as the music is a root. We talk about the food in our music. Like, for example, early jazz, Jelly Roll Morton. Jelly, they didn't know this. Jelly is the real word for griot. Why else would be Jelly Roll Morton, right? You know, in our music, we reference jambalaya and crawfish pie, filet gumbo. We have a ton of songs across all the genres that were born in the South that reference food.
Beans and cornbread.
All right. How to fight, right? Beans told cornbread, I'll fight with you tomorrow night. And we remember this, right? And then the spirituality. One thing I missed out was scripture cake. You know what scripture cake is? You literally take the King James Bible and you say, so there's reference to apples, for example, tapuach in Hebrew, from Shir HaShirim, the Song of Solomon. So you find that verse and you go, in the Bible, in Song of Solomon, verse whatever, you need 2 cups of that verse. Or it says things like the offerings, an epitaph of flour. So you have to have whatever that verse is for flour. And then spices, whatever. So, you know, in the South, we have something called, in evangelical Southern culture, the real one, not the fake one. You had memory verses. All of us who grew up that way had our memory verses. And you would get candy or money, a little quarter for it, a little penny, whatever, for however many verses the King James Bible you could remember. It had to be the King James Bible. Because we actually were taught that was from the Word of God himself. God waited till 1611. And that was the only acceptable version. Right? And so anyway, so this is, you know, there's that. There's also the herbalism and also traditional folk religions in the South. The idea of, you know, who knows what Limp and Susan is? Right? You don't know what Limp and Susan is. Or Limp and Kate. Why is Kate limping and why is Susan limping? But we know about Hop and John. Why is John hopping around? Because much like the Italians, where food has real names, and it can only be that food. Al telefono, alla vodka, puttanesca. Don't look that one up. And so you keep going, but Southern food, Sally Lunn, which came from French, Sole et lune, right? Sun and the moon. And then it's like Hop and John, field peas and rice. Limp and Kate, okra and grits. Limp and Susan, okra and rice. And then so on and so on and so on. So, you know, in Southern families, you don't really know anybody's real name. I had my grandfather Jr., Gonsley Jr., I didn't know what his damn name. I always called him Uncle Fat Boy. Thing about it is, ain't nothing fat about this man. He's like the most muscular Southern black mechanic you ever saw in your life. He can actually lift cars with his bare hands, right? So those little, that's your Uncle Fat Boy. Okay, that's your cousin Bubba. Until there's a funeral, a wedding, or graduation, you don't know anybody's real name. Right? And the same way we name our food because our food is family. Our food is part of our genealogy. Doesn't matter what culture. Cajun people. Is she Catholic? Who's a mama? And can she make a roux? Go to the wedding. What does he say? He says, baby, I love you more than 10,000 pounds of boudin and 20 pounds of crackling. You know, and I think that's the poetry of Southern people. It's something that you go to these places, and we may disagree about a lot of different things, but when we talk about food, we light up with each other. And we have that kind of dialogue that makes you feel for a moment there's paradise on earth.
So
But that's who we are.
I'm sure there are a lot of burning questions in the audience, but there's one more thing I wanted to ask you
Yes.
before we open the floor up, because when we were backstage, you had talked about the 98th Street Y in New York.
91.
Canceling an event for both you and the Native American chef
Sean
Sherman.
Yep.
And, we know, thankfully, there's been a barrage of books that are looking at African diasporic food and history and culture. And we're seeing an uptick, thankfully, of more Native food books written by Native folks. Sean Sherman, Crystal Wapepa, and so on and so forth. But I'm wondering if there are things that you would like us to know about the indigenous food knowledge that contributes to the Southern plate that I know a lot of people are aware of.
So I'm very specific about Brunswick stew. That Ronnie Lundy's right. It was not some dudes on a hunting trip. It was an indigenous woman who came up with Brunswick stew. She didn't know what the word Brunswick was, but it was squirrel stew, right? And then we had to talk about there's grape dumplings. My friend Emily Bowden Cohen was at the thing in L.A. and Emily is Ashkenazi Jewish mom, full-blood Creek father. And she grew up on the reservation. So we talk a lot about what it means to be Native American or Jewish, and she's, has an Orthodox Jewish family, but her kids all learning how to speak Muskogee. And so when she said she cried when she saw the grape dumplings. That's a very southeastern Native American dish. The wild grapes, and you would put the corn dumplings in there, flour dumplings, and they turn purple with the fruit, right? And then, of course, hominy. Some parts of barbecue. I really go through that as it's a lot of different people's stories put together. It's not one, it's many. There's so many things that come from that. And, of course, not just the corn, just but the makshu and everything else, succotash. And these aren't dead, and the people aren't dead either. Now, there's certain things I can't put in there, like safki. Safki is a very central Muskogee dish. The problem is with safki is it's a corn gruel that you kind of fermented, but also has a small little bit of lye added to it. It's kind of zesty, let's put it that way. You got to be used to it. Some clubs you can join, and others you got to be born in. And there's that. So, to me, it was so critical to make sure that queer people are acknowledged, that women are acknowledged, not just as, okay, the women did this. No, the women invented all of it. The queer people preserved it and passed it on. It's you can't tell a story of Southern food. I remember when you had that gorgeous event at Moad, and it was packed, and it was queer black folks. We had
black queer food.
Yes, we had mixologists and winemakers and historians, and Lazarus was there, and it was just fantastic. But this is not then, just now, it's then too. Craig Claiborne, Bill Neal, Bill Smith, James Beard himself wasn't Southern, but still, and this queen right here, So we have so many people who shaped this, and so many queer women, so many trans people, siblings who shaped this. And I'm never going to let you forget. We're tired of just being the choir director, the this, the guard, the preserver of the family memories, and then you forget about us, and then you say that we don't belong. You wouldn't even know who you were without us. And so I made a real point of saying everybody got to be in the family portrait. Or none of us get to be. I delivered a sermon tonight, didn't I?
Look, we here for it.
All right.
So Stephanie has a mic. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and she'll bring it over to you.
Forrest, too.
Hey, Forrest. I ain't seen you yet.
First of all, let me start off by saying anybody that thinks Afro food is yuck needs their taste buds examined, and anybody who likes Sherman's a friend of mine. But I think my question for one or both of you guys is probably twofold. Do you know if in the rice book there's a recipe for kimchi rice, or have you guys seen that PBS documentary called Bloodline at all with David Fu?
Oh yeah. So
Talk about that.
well, I've seen it, and two is actually, so I have a publishing imprint at Penguin Random House, and we published Two's book, Memory of Taste. I don't think there's a kimchi rice recipe in the rice book.
No.
But I mean, we're in the Bay Area. It's like you could throw a rock and hit a Korean restaurant and find that. So.
And I'll tell you, the rice book for UNC Press was very specifically part of the Savor the South series, but never meant to be exhaustive. It's a little tiny book.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to fit along with like 20 other books about, shrimp, oysters, ham, greens, but get me. So it was never supposed to be exhaustive. I wonder if Chef JJ in his rice book might have it. But I mean, he does do a lot of like cross, and then there was that.
His initial thing was Afro-Asian food.
Yes, and that was what was that book called? It was with Alexander Smalls.
Yeah.
And the thing about that book that was so beautiful was
From Harlem to Heaven.
Harlem to Heaven,
Yeah.
and it's like a gradient, as opposed to just a fusion. It's a gradient, showing you the connections and the crossovers between the foodways. Remarkable. Everything he does, that brother is just too sharp.
Yeah.
Yep. What else we got? We only got room for a few questions, so I want to get that done.
Michael, I'm curious, from your book, are there a few recipes that you're especially excited about that you want to be sure people don't miss?
Yeah. There's pig's ears from Cajun country. The fritter, and you put cane syrup on it. I can't eat tree nuts, but it's a lovely idea, eating pecans. And it's like you make them and you twist them with a fork. They're kind of like Osne Dalman, which is the Sephardic kind of version of, not hamantash, but it's like the Sephardic sweet for Purim. But it's probably the same heritage, but they're called pig's ears, okay? And then they look like big hog ears, and then you do that. That's another thing. You got to tell people, no, it's not an actual pig's ear. Cat head biscuits don't actually contain cat. Frogmore stew has got no frog in it. That whole name thing. But I'm excited about that and a few others because you don't really see them anymore. And I wanted to bump them back up so that people understood that they are still here with us and can be made. You don't hear about them that often. Or like more people know about kalas now, right? But we have kalas in there, and we also have beignet. And those are things I love. I like fried sweet stuff. I don't make it that often because it's like devastating. Also, it smells up your house for like weeks. But I mean, that kind of thing is really important to me because the crab chop, I wish the picture came out better because the original picture from Peter Feebleman's Cajun Creole book from Time Life has this gorgeous picture of this crab chop made for Lent. And it has the crab's claw. It looks like a pork chop, but it's all crab. And that claw comes out almost like the bone on a rib chop. And it's the most beautiful picture because the plate was the menu. So on the side of the plate is the whole menu for this New Orleans restaurant in French from the late 19th century. And, you can't ask but so much people. The pictures are gorgeous. But I had one rule. Don't you put them on no daggone red and white tablecloth. I don't want to hear banjos being picked, guitars being fixed, or broken harmonicas being playing when people open this book. I don't want no stereotypes. I don't want no bad news like Evelina. I don't know. I want you to sit up there. I got you. I don't want nothing. I want none of that because I don't want those tropes. I want people to see an old South in new ways and a new South in old ways. I want that flip. And if you know the tradition, the one recipe that unfortunately I was not allowed to have in the book that I wrote up and everything was sassafras tea. Because they were like liabilities. I'm like, my grandparents that lived to be in their late 90s had sassafras tea all the time. It's not a carcinogen, whatever. Cut out that RFK nonsense. So the one recipe that I'm sad that I didn't include was fried okra. Because I forgot, I never really make fried okra. I'm not like craving it. I don't like everything Southern. That's another thing I can be honest about. I don't like all of it. You know what I'm saying? There was a story, was Latrobe, one of the early architects. He's in Richmond in the 19th century, and he sees an old black man who he refers to as uncle, which is, and he says, "Uncle, what are you catching? Is it shad?" Thinking he knew everything. He said, "Oh, no, sir. I wouldn't feed shad to a hose dog." That tells you that people didn't just eat everything because it was there. That myth, oh, they ate that because they had to eat. No, they didn't. My great-grandfather loved possum and sweet potatoes. Didn't mean he if he didn't have possum, he was going to die. No, people ate, they said certain things, we're not going to eat them. That's important to understand. Not everybody ate everything. This is very true. So, I mean, those kind of rescued recipes are really important to me. And when I see them, I feel good because I know they'll live on. Because you got to cook it to eat. You got to cook it to preserve it. All right.
Celia. Thank you. Hey, Michael.
Hey.
I don't know if you know, my family is actually Jews from the South, and they're from Jacksonville, Florida.
That counts.
And yeah, it does. It's sort of Baja, Georgia. But I am curious to know if you included sort of a two-headed question. If you included any Southern food from Florida specifically, and also what Jewish foods do you consider Southern, or Southern foods do you consider
Well, I included
Jewish?
Sephardic pink rice, which is very particular to Jews who came from Rhodes and Turkey. And then that's Montgomery, Birmingham, and Atlanta. All the rest, most of the restaurants in Alabama were either Greek or Jewish. And they come from that age of immigration. If you were in the South, you ate at people's houses. That whole tradition of the guest and the groaning table was very rare. You ate at taverns or hotels. But the restaurants on their own, like Nikki's West, that's Greek Nikki. Wow. Right? And that's not, there's a reason why that Greek diner, the Southern spaghetti, right? With the barbecue, Memphis, that's Greek people. Okay? I did a lot of stuff in Kosher Soul because I documented the history and told the story. So I didn't want to repeat myself too much, but I felt Sephardic pink rice is very important because it's like red rice. They're very similar. And I often talk about the Jewish heritage of the South and its food. But I didn't want to go into, for example, I could have done I think I may have Coca-Cola brisket in there. I don't know if I explain it as a Jewish thing. I don't know. It's been a while. But Coca-Cola brisket is very, important to the Jews of Memphis. But it's again, it was I had to edit my own brain. Florida, daddle pepper sauce. Let's see. Key lime pie, which actually is from the north through Florida to the rest of the South. It's a couple other things. It's grouper. I don't really do a whole lot of turtle recipes. Number one, I had turtle one point in time, and I swear to God, it was like somebody daring you to lick the bottom of an aquarium. I'm oh my God. And I do put frogs' legs, possum, all this stuff in there because I think it's important to people understand this isn't trash food. It actually was lifted to the level of delicacy. And people from Europe, Native America, and Africa enjoyed game. Okay? It was also seasonal. Rabbit time is springtime. Okay? Possum time is wintertime. Squirrel time is summertime. Fall time is coon time. You do not mix those up because the animal is breeding and glands are present and also reproducing. That's why it's like this whole roadkill thing insults me. First of all, we knew better to eat something dead. Well, if it was freshly dead, that's different. But we knew better. There was a whole knowledge system to how you like when Sally Ann Robertson took Andrew Zimmern, they were pulling a raccoon apart.
Oh yeah.
And she's showing you got to take the glands out, else it's going to taste like skunk the whole bit of it. Oh. So having said that, I really tried to make sure. I didn't do a whole lot of cat head biscuits, kind of staying in for West Virginia. But one thing I didn't do, and I'm saying this because of the whole Florida thing, I wanted to make sure people understood. Florida is present. We love you. I did want to do stuff from Southern Florida, then I stopped myself and said, nah.
Like gator.
Well, first of all, gator tastes like Shrek, and you know that. Gator tastes like a shrimp and a chicken did something they shouldn't have been doing. And then, of course, like, y'all were like, wait, but once you kind of like resolve that, I thought some of those stories, like the Dattle Pepper story, is really interesting because it was brought by the Minorcans and tell that story. Or for example, we can talk about how like the pepperoni roll, West Virginia, but I didn't include it because there's some blurry lines in my brain about what really applies and what doesn't. Pepperoni roll is, I think, the state food of West Virginia. But it's not like, I was brought with Italian immigrants who worked in the coal mines, who were a very significant part of the coal mine culture. So, I mean, it's hard to edit down. I guess if there's another edition of this book, I'm going to make sure I get the fried okra. Mississippi folks was mad at me because I had no comeback, so I don't like it. Can we say that? I don't like it, so it ain't got to be in my book. I ain't got to invite everybody to my table, and I ain't got to eat everything at the table. That's just how it goes. But I mean, of course, if I was being completely exhaustive, I would do that because, you have to. But Nellie Dupree already did that. You also remember there are other people who have done other versions of this kind of thing. This is sweeping. It is not to impress Southerners. It's for an English-speaking international audience. Lest you be reminded that Canada, the UK, English speakers around the world are supposed to be able to read this book, understand Southern food through that lens. So yeah, I'm really grateful for your questions and for your presence and your energy, and for showing up, because I am exhausted, y'all. I was in a car service from LA to San Francisco, which I got in at 4:00 in the morning, and came all the way up through 5 and over everything. So, and I gotta say this, I adore Stephanie. She is so supportive, and our Erev Juneteenth program has only grown. Gorgeous. This past year, if you weren't there, I can't tell you, because me, Joshua Nelson, and his whole crew brought the house down. The food was good. There wasn't no food left. It was the Jewish gospel, kosher gospel thing was live. He actually got people up dancing and clapping and on rhythm. It was just a fantastic event. And it was a really great release. All the issues we're dealing with, the emotions came out, and it was a really beautiful healing night. So I encourage you, next year when we do Erev Juneteenth, be there. You don't want to miss it. You really don't want to miss it. This place was just electric. Packed. They had to turn people away who were they kept letting people in, so they couldn't let people in anymore. Okay? So, and Bryant, so the first thing I said to him was, how them gals, I bet they tall as you now. He said, I made his little girl's name was Little, and I haven't seen him in a minute. So I'm like, they gotta be high school. He's like, yep, yeah, high school kids now. And he don't look it, that's that vegan thing. He don't look a day older. We got a little salt and pepper, but don't look a day older. But I just want to say thank you to everybody. It's a lot of work to do this. And thank you for buying the book. Thank you for giving a book as gifts. Thank you for being here. Thank you for just helping me live my American dream. Thank you.
So, Michael, thank you for your generosity tonight, for reminding us that Southern food is not just cuisine, but a lineage, a geography of memory, and a living archive of our ancestors' ingenuity. And thank you for joining us in this conversation. And my hope is that you'll carry these stories, these techniques in this book, and the questions that you might have back into your own kitchens. And sometimes we need to work things out at the stove, the cutting board, and I invite you to do that. And I invite you to the back to have your book signed by Michael, and I invite you to have a wonderful evening. Thank y'all for coming out.
Yeah.